Hey, business builders. Today I'm joined on the Business Builder Way by Gabe Grifoni. Gabe is the founder of Rufus Labs. And if you're interested, you can find them at getrufus.com, GETRUFUS.com. I met Gabe through a friend that I went to engineering school with back at Bucknell, and he told me about Gabe's ventures in the startup world. Gabe's in LA. He's raised funding through friends and family and through other rounds to facilitate the research, development, growth team of his wearable technology. So I'm wearing an Oura ring, which is wearable for health, right? But he's doing industrial wearables. So think of like a glove that has a barcode scanner in it that's used in pick and pack in a warehouse, that's used in not necessarily just big logistics, distribution centers, but might also be used if you have a storeroom of parts and manufacturing, and where you have a team that's handling inbound materials, parts, and they're barcoded, food, right? Whatever you can think of that's got a barcode where you pick it up and move it. That's what Gabe's company does. I think you're going to love this episode because we often work with bootstrappers, but it's really fun to work with people that think of getting outside funding. Gabe's done that. I also like the fact that he's on the cutting edge of research. He talks about some wearable devices that he is using and experimenting with. And I can tell that helps him spark creativity in the industrial wearable devices that he sells and distributes to the market. The other thing Gabe and I talked about was his creative time, his visualization time, how him casting vision ties into getting funding and having investors know about the future and what it is that he's trying to create. Gabe has 14 team members now, and of course he's using outsourced manufacturing. So in some sense, there's a lot of other team members, and he's got a partner network that's helping him get their devices into more distribution centers, logistics centers, food handling facilities, etc. But he's got those 14 people, and off camera afterwards, what we talked about, what was evident, is that he loves those people. He's investing in those people, and he feels like he is, kind of winning the lottery in terms of getting people who are so talented, so hardworking, so dedicated to the mission for the amount of money that he's paying them. And he said, I guess they are just all committed to the vision and the mission that we've cast. And that's certainly true. And the love that he has for those people and how he wants them all to thrive and succeed, I'm sure, is what they're feeling and why they want to work for this guy. So I really encourage you to listen to this all the way through, use it as inspiration for your own leadership, your own casting of vision, and of course, what he does with the integration of robotics and humans is something that we're all going to have to adapt and evolve with, because it's coming, and we want to be able to use these technologies in our businesses for the benefit of our team so that they can all thrive as well. Enjoy. Welcome to the Business Builder Way podcast, where we help business builders grow leadership skills and wisdom and stay grounded through hero stories. So let's get after it. Hey, Gabe, welcome to the Business Builder Way.
Hey, Wayne, thanks for having me. Appreciate you having me on today.
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to talk about Rufus Labs, and we're going to talk about your work and all the things maybe behind you on the shelf and what you're doing. However, before we got started, you just told me that you have been in a Super Bowl commercial. And so that is interesting, and I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, for sure. So I've always been driven by whatever really kind of excites me. Money was never a driver for me. It was, especially working in entertainment, right? Getting that industry is terrible, right? But it was exciting, and it was something that I knew I just wanted to do. So I had worked as a production assistant. I was getting, lunches and things for people and working on TV shows. Moved out to California, started working, doing some acting, and I ended up doing a bunch of commercials. I did about I think 60 over my career doing that. And I think there were 6 that were Super Bowl spots. It was a lot of auditions. It was a lot of going to, calls where you're just in for 30 seconds. You drive an hour in traffic to get there and you're gone. But these spots, one of them was they launched the new chocolate M&M. And there was this spot during the Super Bowl where they launched the new chocolate M&M. I think it was Vanessa Williams did the voice of the M&M or something. But I was in that one. I always played myself a lot. But I was just kind of this dumb guy in the corner who thought this M&M was naked, right? Because she was chocolate colored, and I was laughing at the fact that I thought she was naked. But that was the kind of premise of the spot. There was an Intel one they had with some robots in it. I did a couple beer ones, one where they built some kind of giant bridge that had collapsed, that humans built the bridge to get a Bud truck across or something. But yeah, those were, it was a totally different world from what I'm in now, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. And no doubt, even what you just said about driving an hour to do 30 seconds with no known outcome probably leads to a lot of positive things for building a business, and just, having failures, but not you viewing it as a failure, and keep going and be resilient and just take a risk and all those things, right?
Yeah, 100%. It is like, if anything is going to build a thick skin and teach you that 99% of the time you're going to fail, I would say, like, you get punched in the face like almost every day, but you just keep doing it.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it felt like, right? You're going and doing these things and exhausting yourself. There's a very slim chance anything is going to work. But, the 10 times they do, or the 8 times they do in a year, or over life, or whatever it is, are worth it. And it's worth that, like, pain and kind of like slog that you go through every day. And it definitely sets up that kind of mental fortitude I feel like you need if you're going to start a business and work with a team or do anything, because you're going to fail most of the time, but you can't stop. It's that persistence of, like, through failure.
So Rufus Labs, you and the company are creating, selling, providing wearable technology for workers who are in warehouses. And where I live here in Pennsylvania, like lots of places, I guess, but we have some big interstates come together. Interstate 81, Interstate 78 are close by. So we've got some big distribution centers. I have friends who work in distributions for some big national name brands, and I've done some coaching and training work in those local distribution centers. So I've seen workers moving and pulling things off of shelves, or sometimes using forklifts, et cetera. So I have a little bit of understanding. It kind of makes sense to me what you're doing, but I want to dig into that a little bit more. But before we get started, the other thing you said, the Super Bowl thing came up, and then you mentioned humans and robots are going to work together more in the future, which, of course, like, that makes sense. And we're all seeing more and more of that all the time. I go to the local grocery store, and they've got this thing, and it's to go up and down the aisles and detect spills. And his name's Marty. And some people don't like Marty. He beeps and he carries on, but I don't know. I always like to go in and be like, yo, Marty, what's up? So that's my image of humans and robots at the moment working together. But say more about that to all of us. Like, we've got landscapers in the business builder audience, farmers, funeral home owners, internet marketers, so a wide variety of businesses. And it would be helpful to just, tell us more about humans and robots working more together, and what the actual devices and things that you're creating.
Yeah, no, for sure. Appreciate that. And kind of what you're seeing, like Marty, you're talking about in the store. I think that Walmart years back had worked with Bossa Nova Robotics. They had made a machine that went up and down aisles and kind of looked for areas that needed replenishment. So it could tell the back of the house to bring out more of this good or that good, right? It would save time. But there was a similar kind of vibe from people in the stores of, I don't really know if I want this robot walking around me. So I think that got kind of scrapped. And I think we're not quite there yet, where there's that comfort level of standing side by side with a robot, maybe in the front of store. But we're seeing a little bit more in the back of house, in a warehouse, where it's not necessarily, integrating with consumers. But the idea of a robot replacing a human doing a lot of manual labor and picking and doing other kinds of tasks is still pretty far off, just because the robots aren't really capable of doing that yet. The infrastructure costs millions of dollars to put in, so it's kind of out of the reach for customers, and it still can't quite do everything you need. So for what we see is, at least the next 20 years, probably, maybe 2030, are going to be this kind of delicate balance. And I'm speaking from a warehousing perspective of, humans are going to start seeing robots come in doing what they call goods to person robotics, right? They do some picking in an aisle as a robot and bring it over to an area where a human is stationary. They don't have to walk around as much, but there's still interaction between the two. So we're going to see that robots need to know who and where a human is, and vice versa, so that they can work together. So that's what we really see, is like coordinating this dance between the two. And for us, we're looking at human automation is kind of what we look at, right? How do we make humans connected to automation, to robots in the warehouse? How do we make them hands-free and more efficient, essentially kind of bring not human and machine, but, where there's pieces, there's tech in them, but on them and stuff like that makes sense, right? How do we connect them to technology? So we build devices that replace existing old technology they might hold in their hands. It frees up their hands, and then we gather a bunch of data as they're moving around a warehouse doing things, and then we can connect them to things like robots if they have to do any kind of goods to person picking and working together.
Gotcha. So tell us a bit more about the actual device. And it's on my hand. So instead of holding a scanner, I'm wearing it like a glove, I think,
Right.
if I
So
remember.
yeah, there's a few ways. It's basically like, so we have a laser scanners, and then we have kind of Android tablet and handheld devices that connect to them. And that's where the screen would be for whatever system they're running, saying, go pick this item and go do that. That's worn on the wrist usually, or maybe mounted on a forklift. And then they're wearing a glove or a ring. We have a little tiny,
And I pulled a
module
picture of it
scanner.
up.
Yeah, there you go. So we have that red scanner on top of the glove. There is a little modular piece that slides out, and that can go into lots of different glove styles. So we have a top 5 food distributor in the world that uses our devices in cold storage. So they might wear a glove that goes over another glove, like that one you see in the middle picture there. And then we have thinner gloves that cover part of the hand that maybe are used more in a retail or an area where you don't need gloves for cold storage, and it's not, it's ambient temperature, right? Or there's a ring. It depends on how the users want to wear it. We build everything modular, so workers can pick whatever works best for them to do their particular job. There's lots of different jobs in the warehouse, from put away to receiving, pick and pack, order fulfillment, pallet breakdown. Depending on the job, it might require a different wearable. So having the ability to be modular and swap things and move them around is part of the platform. And you'll see a boost right away. Like if you're in any store and you see someone scanning, they're going to have those brick on a stick, $3,000, scanners with keypads on them, right? Replacing those, moving it to their hands, you'll automatically see about a 10 to 20% boost in productivity, just freeing up workers' hands in a
Okay.
job where they need to pick things up and move them. And then over time, as we learn where workers are spending their time and where we can maybe find inefficiencies and move it back into direct task time, over time, our system will learn where those inefficiencies are and help point them out, so you continue to get improvements in workflows. So we see customers, iMart Express is a customer that's seen, I think, over 50% boost in pick rates and productivity over time with just going to wearables and then being able to use our system on tracking labor and improving their workflows.
Got it. So I'm pulling the screen back up again for anybody
Yep.
that's listening. And I see a video on your webpage, which is scanners.getrufus.com is where I'm at right now. And there's this
Yep.
video, which I love explainer videos like this. We're seeing there's a promise, right? Or a testimonial. We're seeing one associate do the work of 3 with Rufus wearables. And I think you've already started to answer that. But how is that? How does that promise come to fruition? One associate do the work of 3.
Yeah, so I mean, our sales ability is based on numbers, right? And that's how we do things, right? We get customers out into demo. We know what their pick rates are now. They start using our system. They can see that improvement right away on a dashboard and the metrics that we provide, and know they're able to do that job. So, like I said, right away, if they're going from paper or handheld, which is pretty much everyone's on handheld, if they're going to a wearable, they're going to instantly see around that 15% improvement in pick rates right away. And workers are able to do their jobs better. It makes the metrics we provide to workers too, they see a live view of where their rates are on a speedometer, right? So I know I just hit my goal. Maybe I get an alert through the Work Hero system. Rufus, our platform is called Work Hero, that says, hey, you just hit your goal of 1,000 items picked per day, or 20 orders shipped, or whatever that is. So we motivate workers and let them know where they're doing, because these workers are paid. If they're the top pickers, they get the front spot in the warehouse. If they're the picker of the month, there's a lot of pride in these kind of jobs and being these top pickers. So much so that, like, it's a fight to keep pickers in your warehouse. There's poaching that goes on. And retaining talent is really important. So that's another area of focus for us too. If you've got the best technology and workers can do their jobs better and they're happier doing their jobs, you're going to retain them. So our technology also allows worker to feel like they're an Iron Man or a superhuman in the warehouse. It's that empowering feeling of doing your job better and faster, and kind of being half human, half machine is a big win for us too with workers. We focus on how do we make the workers' lives easier. That's the way we win deals, is we just do everything in our platform to make, they're frustrated if something isn't working, if a barcode doesn't scan, if they have to spend 8 seconds waiting for something and their pick rate goes down. Like that 8 seconds matters. Every fraction of a second matters in the warehouse. And that's what we really focus on, is making that better for everyone involved in the process, a better experience.
So you're on the business builder way, and business builders are another way of saying business owner, entrepreneur, founder. So the idea of wearables, I'm wearing a Aura ring, so tracking sleep, tracking stress, tracking resiliency now. So I guess wearables aren't really that odd, right? In the world we're in. I've worn a continuous glucose monitor for 2 weeks to just get a sense for when I eat things, when I exercise, what happens with glucose spikes, and the ultimate wearable, because of course it's like in my pocket all the time, is this iPhone that I have, or Android, or whatever you've got. Do you use any wearables like that personally?
Yeah, personally, I have an Apple Watch. So as a consumer, I'm big into the Apple ecosystem, right? Once you have one of the devices, they all
Yeah.
kind of connect and you're in there, right? So I love my watch for a multitude of reasons, to keep me on time for things, to send me alerts for meetings. Another wearable I just got that I'm 50-50 on. Yeah, I'm an early adopter. So, I was online for the first iPhone at 3 in the morning and it went on sale at 5 p.m. that day. But I just got this thing called an AI pin. It's made by a company called Humane. And it is a little, like, almost like a Star Trek communicator pin, right? And it's a very strong magnet. You just put on the back, slap it on here. It has, and I use it, it's pretty cool. It has an AI camera that looks out and you can say, hey, what's the nutritional value of this? It'll see what you have in your hand. You can ask it questions. It's not tied to your phone or anything. It also has a really cool, like, laser display. If you hold your hand in front of you, it projects the display of a kind of a screen, and you use your hand, like, tilting it and going like
Mm-hmm.
this to, like, select things. So that's the newest kind of wearable I've been playing with, my, like, little AI pin, my communicator pin.
Good. And I didn't say this, but you're a California guy. So of course you're on the leading edge of this. Back here in Pennsylvania, takes us a little bit longer to learn about those things. So that's
This
cool. I
thing
haven't heard of that.
this thing's super early. I don't
Yeah.
know if I was like a regular consumer, if I'd buy this yet. It overheats on me all the time when I'm using it. It says your AI pin is hot, it needs to cool down, turn it off. So that, not good so far, but it's a really cool concept. But
Yeah.
yeah, those are the wearables I think I'm using now.
Nice. So we talked a little about what it does and the wearable and how it works. Who is your ideal customer? So we've got a Lowe's distribution center, PetSmart. I got a friend that works for a big tire distribution company. These are big distribution centers. Also have a guy we connected through a mutual friend, Elo Comfort. I went to Bucknell with him, and Elo and I both knew this guy named Jerry. Jerry he's worked in distribution and logistics, but he's now working for a little bit of a smaller company, and they've got warehouses, distribution centers that are a bit smaller, and they site those coincident with regional airports. So not Philadelphia International, but like Harrisburg here in Pennsylvania would be a place where they would have a little distribution center with maybe 3 or 4 people in there picking out paints, industrial paints, and airplane parts. So that's kind of the range of when I think of distribution. Although, no, you know what? I know somebody that has a business locally where they call it Eco Ship, I think, and they're doing shipping using more environmentally friendly materials, and they do fulfillment for people who have smaller companies, a la like Tim Ferriss 4 Hour Work Week, and they come up with some kind of a smaller, or it may not be a smaller item, but I'm saying they've got a smaller company and they're using computing power and then outsource pick and pack and shipping. And so they have a variety, they've probably got a couple hundred of companies that are in there with, a certain number of racks, et cetera. So who's your customer within all of that? Or maybe I haven't even hit it. I don't know.
I mean, basically everyone. So our ICP, like our ideal customer profile, I mean, from a high level, is anyone that's scanning a barcode, anyone that's
Okay.
moving a good. So we have kind of three different verticals, I guess, of customers. We're agnostic to the vertical because people don't, I think, even spend the time to realize that logistics is such a huge underpinning of not just like when you order something, it comes to your door, right? And that's going to be most of it, right? But then there's companies like Thermo Fisher Scientific is one of our earliest customers, medical device manufacturer. They're shipping goods between facilities to other direct to B2B, not direct to consumer. So 3PLs are going to be our top level of customers. So customers like a J Group, eShipper Plus, eShipper Plus, Elite Fulfillment Services, customers that have 10, 20, 100 brands under their umbrella that they ship goods for those brands, multiple facilities. They use our devices. They have eyes into every facility once they're using our devices in terms of what humans doing what, where, to any time. So that's great for those kinds of customers. And again, improving that time and reducing labor. Then our second level is retail and e-com. So J. Jill, their big distribution center in New Hampshire, runs all of our tech, one of our oldest customers. Them and Thermo Fisher are first 2 or 3 customers we had on, and they've just renewed their 3 years. So I'm very excited about that. But yeah, retail customers. And then the third tier is going to be those Thermo Fisher, Integra Biosciences customers that are in manufacturing, that have goods, physical goods that they're moving between facilities or to other businesses. even aerospace, automobile manufacturers, when there's parts, anything that has a barcode and inventory that has to be tracked, which is the underpinning of any business with a physical good, is pretty much our customer. And from size, we have SMB, small, medium business customers that have 5 to 10 pickers in a facility on the small end, like those are there. We have medium range, and then we're just closing, like I mentioned, 5 food distributor in the world with dozens of facilities here in North America. So kind of runs the gamut. You'll see an improvement anywhere. So everyone you talked about there excites me because they're all potential customers. If there's a warehouse and barcodes, then they're a potential partner.
Got it. So let's talk a little bit about your business builder journey. And maybe you've been a serial entrepreneur. I don't know. I didn't ask you that ahead of time. Maybe this is your first venture, but like, how did this start? When did the kind of the idea bubble on a cartoon when we were kids? They'd be like, ding, somebody has an idea. When did this idea start? How did it get going? Yeah, share your journey.
Yeah, so this idea started like a decade ago. I ended up going to CES because the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas. I had a background in tech and I had kind of gone away from that with all my entertainment side, but I started working on writing that was tech focused. So my writing side and my tech side kind of came together, and I got a free pass to CES because I had enough, kind of press and following to be able to get a free pass. I went and I just kind of saw an area. I was like, there's really a missing area of wearable technology before the Apple Watch was made. And it was, I think Pebble maybe was the only kind of smartwatch that existed, if anyone remembers that, with an e-ink display. Ending of that story was not very good for Pebble, but they had a great rise while they were going. But on the ride home 4 hours back from Vegas, I was like, I bet I could build a better wearable. And I just kind of imagined how that would look and work and feel on that 4-hour car ride, because that's one of my favorite places to be, in the car alone, where I can stop whenever I want and no one bothers me. I can put my phone on airplane mode. It's one of the only places I get peace and quiet on long rides. So I like those car rides. Anywhere under 6 to 9 hours, I'll usually drive. I've done day trips, 6 hours there and back each way. But anyway, driving home, had this idea, called a few friends who were people I went to school with and knew were smarter than me. I said, hey, I want to start this business. I want to build a wearable. I want to move everything out of the pockets onto this device. Bought a 3D printer with money we all chipped in together. And I learned AutoCAD by not sleeping for 5 nights and watching YouTube videos and teaching myself how to build a 3D model and start printing. And then a little time later, we got to a prototype, and we were always on the consumer side, right? We can build something that moves everything out of the pockets. It was a widescreen wearable that was like a sexy kind of stretched out Apple Watch, like futuristic, very kind of like Fallout kind of thing. And we got the attention from a very large retailer. And they said, hey, can you fly out to our facility and show us what you've built? We have some ideas of how that might help us in the warehouse. And that for us was eye-opening, because I got a peek behind the curtain of one of the biggest brands out there in the world, how this could be helpful in their warehouses. And that made us think, what? We're going to scrap everything, focus on enterprise, rebuild everything from the hardware from the ground up in 8 months, and focus on rugged devices for industry, and then build software that helps make that better, right? And that's kind of how the journey began. It was, had an idea that sparked something else. And as a startup and as an entrepreneur, you should always be pivoting and listening to your customers. We build everything by listening to our customers. And it's that why, not the what, and why we do things. And that opened up the door for us, and been listening ever since. That's kind of how we got here.
And what year was that, the Consumer Electronics Show?
That was, I think I went in 2013. And then we probably launched some stuff in 2014, once we spent time building things and raising a little bit of money from friends and family on building a prototype widescreen smartwatch that never existed before. And I'm so glad we didn't end up on the consumer side, though, by the way, because I love my Apple Watch. It's a race to the bottom on that consumer side. And this is a device that has a reason for being, right? It's not an accessory or a choice of like, do I want this or not? This has a legitimate, helpful use case for people in the workforce, and that like drives us, and it's so exciting to be doing that. So very thankful how we ended up on this path and listened to the universal way, right?
Who was employee number 2, or what position, and what did they do?
So aside from me and like the few friends that I brought in 3 friends as co-founders. So those are kind of the first group, but the real people we hired. So Easton, who's now our head of growth, hired as a intern for free because we couldn't afford anything at a USC, and has been here ever since. We've been really lucky that we hired people, out of school who probably don't keep jobs for more than a year or two and move. that are super loyal and dedicated to the mission. And everyone here who's on board has a vested interest in the company. So they want to see it succeed too, because they're all going to win out of it. So I think Easton was our real employee number 2. And then Trent, who's our VP of engineering now, who runs all of our projects along with our CTO. First 2 hires.
We're talking about COVID period and work from home, and you were saying sometimes you're on the phone at 3 a.m. with China with manufacturing. And so with all that, do you have a physical office now?
We do have a physical office. We have inventory, our scanners and stuff that we have to keep. It's about a mile away. I always like to pick something I can walk to. And our operations head is in there most of the time, getting demo shipments, orders out the door. And sometimes we have meetings there. But for the most part, we are on stand-ups every day at 9 with engineering on Zoom. Our team is pretty remote now. About 50% here in LA. And now we have team in North Carolina, Maryland, Kansas City, San Diego, kind of all over, which is nice to help customers on the East Coast. We have some team out there now too, so it's on those hours.
And I have a whiteboard over there off to my left, and I often think of business builders creating. My daughter's an artist too, so I have her art is hanging up, and then I got this whiteboard, and I think you are creating on the canvas of business, right? And so if you were to paint the picture of the company, you got that I like that, a mile away, always being able to walk. And then you have these first few hires, and their people are remote and a stand-up. Who else is in that picture? Like, how many people are working at Rufus now? What are the different functions of what they're doing?
Yeah, so we have 14 full-time right now. About half the team is engineering. So we have an Android side, a database of AI and machine learning kind of side. Our CTO was the former CTO at Napster. I was lucky enough to like be his neighbor. We became really good friends, and I finally stole him away from the last job he was at, working at a music app here in California, and got him to work here. And he's got a background actually in logistics and AI and machine learning. So it's kind of perfect for where we see a lot of warehousing going in the future with, you know, those abilities and stuff. And then the other half of the team is sales and operations. So getting things out the door. We've got a sales team with a background in logistics. So we're pretty scrappy. And I've always, since I would have probably never got, I don't know who would hire me, is I had to give myself a job basically. So that mindset of, you know, if you really put your mind to something, even though you've never done it before, you know, if you're really hell-bent on getting that done, that's a mindset that I look for. When I hired like Trent, who's our VP of engineering, like he had an engineering degree from UCLA, but no one had hired him 6 months after he graduated. And I was like, this guy's great. Like maybe on paper there's things, but he has the right attitude, right? He's one of the best hires we have. One of my buddies who's an actor, director, and I was like, you know, you're working part-time right in a wine shop. Like, why not do this and learn B2B sales? Have you ever done it before? No, but he's phenomenal. Closed deals already and was having customer deals closing in 60 to 90 days after starting. So putting the team together has always been really interesting, and finding people that either have a background in what they're doing or have no reason to do that job, but they just have the right attitude. And then you want to put them in there and see them succeed. Like they get to pick their own path. So that's how we've built out the team. It's a really dedicated and strong team with some pretty diverse skills.
Yeah, that's great. So you mentioned a habit of yours, a creative habit, which is driving in the car and being willing to do somewhat longer drives than maybe some people think about getting a plane ticket, but you're like, hey, anything up to 6 hours is actually a really good time for me. Airplane mode, I could stop and get a journal or laptop out or whatever you do. Are you the visionary in the company? And do you think like 3 years out or 10 years out, or is it one year? How is your vision created and then nurtured, and how does that work for you?
Yeah, I mean, I do spend a lot of time thinking a lot of years out. We kind of have to, at least from, you know, even an investor standpoint, right? Like, yeah, everyone wants to know what you're doing today, but they want to know, like, what's the plan for when robots are here? What's all that? So, you know, but that plan is always shifting and changing. There've been a lot of companies that have done things too soon, and everyone's not ready for it. There's a company called Daqri that used to exist out here in LA, Daqri, and they made this really cool helmet for industry that I actually have one in my garage. It was a $10,000 helmet. When they ended up going out of business and shutting down, a friend of mine bought a bunch for $1 each and gave me one. And it has like a thermal imaging sensor. I can look through walls with it. It's really cool. But they had built this thing. It was so early, but they were thinking about that, right? You kind of have to be thinking about what is the thing I want to build, but is the world also ready for it, right? Like there's a lot of technologies, like vision picking is something we talk about in robots, but we're just not at the place where it's going to work yet in the real world. It's not there yet. So you have to be thinking of it, but you also have to be short term, like what are the things my customers need today that will work and that they can buy right now? So we're always kind of on that line of what's in the future, but like no one's going to buy that today, right? We wouldn't be alive if we were building things that were the future. We have to be kind of building both and thinking about that. So my focus is really on product and team here. The operations and the sales side, I obviously have to be on, but I can't wait till we have some more resources and people who can focus on that, because those are things I really enjoy. And especially now that we've been growing our partner network. You kind of ask who's on the team. We now have over 30 partners, including like Brother Mobile is now a printer, some other names I can't discuss yet, but we have a lot of partners and thinking of how we integrate with that bigger ecosystem, right? Because everyone's a piece of the puzzle in the warehouse. And for the customer to have the best experience, you want to like seamlessly be able to connect robots and humans and whatever else needs to be in there. So thinking ahead of how we're going to work with those partners and support the future too is a big part of the process.
Do you go anywhere to think, or is it these car rides, or do you like schedule 2-day Gabe retreats or anything like that, or what?
I try to block off time on my calendar if I really want to, because I get booked for too many things between
Like
customers and everything.
podcasts? Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. It's like internal meetings, or there's a million MSAs and deals going around that I have to review. So I do have to block off time, and I will take some time. Like I'm luxury of having a yard here in LA. I'll do some yard work. I'll go out and do some planting for a half an hour, mow the lawn, do some hedge trimming. On the weekends, I'm never really off either. People don't bother me, so I do try to find time. But I got a family, so it's like I got a 6-year-old. It's hard to find time too. A lot of times at night after 9 or so, 10, I'll stay up sometimes till 1 or 2 in the morning, or sometimes I can't sleep at 2 or 3 and I brainstorm then when it's completely quiet. Not as much time as I used to have. I used to have a lot more time blocked off, and yeah, I need more time.
I'm glad you brought up the trees. We talked about family and integrating and how y'all are in the same house and you're working from there, right? And then and we talked about how I'd been out in the lawnmower just before I got on. So thanks for sharing about the trees in your California backyard and how that's part of your rhythm, right?
Oh, it's real nice. Like in the middle of the day, it's kumquat season right now. So I just pop a few kumquats in the middle of the day while I'm working. We've got plums and figs, peaches. There's a bunch of stuff, grapes. So there's always something to kind of eat and get my hands dirty with out there.
So with what you just said about waking up and then like 3 a.m. calls and everything, I'm going to work to kind of land the plane in our conversation here and get to an ending. But I'm interested in, okay, so you got this little piece of property of that, you have these calls and time to think, and you wake up and 6-year-olds and dogs. What kind of like agreements do you make, you and a 6-year-old? I don't know if it's son or daughter.
Oh, yeah, Atticus. He's a boy. Yeah.
Atticus. So you, your husband, Atticus, dogs, who the dogs you can't really talk about, although I know my dogs come up to me and they actually want, like, they make it clear they want playtime or whatever.
100%.
What kind of agreements do you make in your home about when I'm working or why or how, so that everybody's on the same page?
There's certain hours during the day, like if Atticus is home early and I've still got calls throughout the day, we make agreements of like, hey, you can do this for a half an hour, or watch this PBS show, or play Mario Kart while I do this call, and then we'll do something for 30 minutes here. We'll go out and get a coffee, or we'll do something in the yard. So it's kind of balancing that time, and then also figuring out, like, between me and my husband, who has meetings when, who can hang with him. So we kind of sometimes plot out our schedule. We keep a dry erase board of the days of the week on the fridge, where if we need to,
dry erase board. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. One of the first things I did everywhere in our early lab was paint dry erase board walls. I got that paint and like covered entire walls in it, because I like to write things all over the place. And I even did in our house secret spots with dry erase paint instead of the white paint, so I can write on the mantle of the fireplace and the banister top.
That's neat.
But yeah, we just kind of, and I do try to force myself to take time, right? If there's like in the afternoon, because a lot of our customers are East Coast, at 3, it might slow down a little bit. So from 3 to 4, maybe I block off and I just walk the dogs, hang with Atticus, and do a little, and maybe it's soccer practice for that hour. But I still haven't figured out the perfect way to balance everything, being at home with an entire family now and not having that office separation all the time. So
It's something I've been working on lately, that I've been a business coach and consultant now for going on 11 years, and 4 kids and all this and COVID, like you said. And it's this year that I've realized I need to do some work on that, being clear. So today, I know for sure, like when my youngest daughter gets home, the plan is at 4, we are going to we got a Blue Apron boxed meal, which every now and then is cool. They're kind of expensive, but kind of cool and easy. And she and I are going to cook together. But for years, I did not do a great job of, and also my wife was home full time, whereas now she's a full-time teacher and she's making it an impact in our community in that way. So trying to rebalance and be intentional about that it's work. It's a process, much like innovating with Rufus Labs, right?
Yeah, it definitely takes time to figure that out. We do the cooking things too. We just did Hungry Root, which I just tried that subscription. Hopefully they're a customer pretty soon. That's why I wanted to try them out, because they're
Gotcha. Yeah.
in demo. And yeah, we do the same kind of thing. I'll block off some time and we'll do some cooking or whatever. You kind of have to do that. And it's right. It seems like this year too, I'm in the same spot of like, we got shaken up by this COVID thing. Now we're all working from home, there's school, and it's all blended. And now that it's become like kind of a regular thing, now I feel like it's putting the pieces together of how do I carve out the time, because my home is my office. So I'm always in my office 24 hours a day now, basically.
So I'm gonna ask one more question, want to explore one more little thing, and then we'll get some contact info if people want to get in touch with you. So the other question I have, I know that you've raised funding. You talked about funding during and how it ties to doing vision, and people want to know your vision. I tend to work with a lot of bootstrappers, Gabe, and people that don't raise funding, but they think about it, and some of them would be interested. So that would be a whole other call to really get into that. But a question sometimes I pose to a bootstrapper, somebody in a more established type of business like landscaping, which still leaves room for lots of innovation and lots of ways to get ahead of the curve, but it's a traditional business model. Sometimes a good coaching question to pose is, let's pretend you got $1 million. Let's pretend you got $1 million. You weren't allowed to just take it, right? So that's off the table, but you have to put that $1 million to work such that you'd be able to prove a return on investment. What would you do with that $1 million? So what is that like in your company? What have you done? What are you doing in terms of raising funding? And you really have had to approach a question like that. Maybe it's not $1 million, maybe it's 100 grand, maybe it's 30 grand in the beginning, but how does that vision and the getting money, how does that come together for you?
I think the vision is bigger at different times in the story too. So your vision is, this is what I'm thinking today. Then I learn more, and now my vision is this, because I know there's this bigger puzzle or piece there. So the vision, I think, is kind of also dependent on where you are and what stage you are as a company. But one of the first things we do when we raise money, a lot of it is going back into the team. Like that's one of the biggest assets we have here. So if I'd say percentage wise, whenever we do raise money, or if someone gave us $1 million, we'd probably spend half of it on bringing in team, because being able to support the customer is going to be, I mean, and this is in our business, I think a lot of businesses, one of the reasons why people stay. They feel like you're listening to them and they're being taken care of. So putting money into your team, and the right team, and enough people to support those customers, that's one of the biggest things I think you can put money back into when you do get money. Obviously marketing. My background is in marketing and in coding, so I spend those sides there. And a lot of people, when they're first making cuts, cut marketing, or maybe they don't put as much value in it. But brand recognition and getting your name out there are the reasons customers feel comfortable with you too. When we first started, we had big brands that said, I don't know who you are, you're new, I don't hear about you. Like, having your name out there over time and building a reputation, whether it be on marketing spend or case studies with your customers, putting money into those kind of brand building efforts, I think is really important. And then product listening. Again, you have to listen to your customers, and that's how you should build your product. Your best guesses are going to be probably 80% wrong, because you think you know what this person needs, right? Until you actually get in there and this person says, I do need it, but it needs to be this way. Or I don't need that at all, but what I can really use is this. So I'd say putting money in product and listening to your customers, reinvesting in your team, and then spending time on your brand are probably the areas I'd put that money into. No matter where you are in the story, those are the parts that are going to help, hopefully get you a strong foundation and keep customers.
That's a key part of the conversation. I know I'm going to go back and re-listen to, because what you just said will be helpful, to me. I want to say even to me. Of course, it'll be helpful to me. I'm building this community of business owners, and the voice of the customer there is super important. To ask people what's working about our mastermind group and the things I offer and what's not. So thank you for that. And I know that'll be helpful to other people as well. Hey, if somebody is listening, and we hope that this happens, and they've got 5 or 10 pickers, or they've got barcodes, and they're like, maybe I could use this. What's the first step with having a conversation with you and your team? How do they get in touch with you? How do they learn more about you, Gabe?
Yeah, the first step is you can go to getrufus.com and sign up for a demo on our website. It's free demos. We ship you the hardware, you test it out, use it for 30 days, 60 days. You'll start to see the returns, and then it's a no-brainer. We've never really lost on the commercials in terms of the amount you'd spend on other devices or hardware that doesn't have all the features or built-in kind of labor reporting and those elements that are important to us. You can call 866-GET-RUFUS, which I think is 438-7838. And those are ways to just get onto our team. As soon as you submit a demo request, you'll get a calendar link and be able to go through our process of getting on a call. We can learn about your ops. It's really about that first call is, what do you do right now? What are you looking to improve? And can we help you, right? We want to make sure we can help you first. Otherwise, we can refer you to someone else who might be able to do things. But just getting on and learning about you is the first step.
Awesome. So Get Rufus, which is GETRUFUS.com. Yep. It's great. Gabe, thanks so much for showing up and sharing your story and more about life and vision and how you create. It's been a really great conversation.
Yeah, awesome. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for having me. And I'm always happy to answer any questions, or if any of your other members of your community have questions on things, I'm happy to get in touch.
Awesome. Go get them. Thanks.
Thanks. Have a good day.
Thank you for tuning into the Business Builder Way podcast. If this episode spoke to you, click that subscribe button and share it with a friend. That's how this message gets out into the world. If it is helpful for us to have a short conversation, I'd love to do that. Send me an email at wayne@businessbuildercamp.com.